talked about modeling and the importance of modeling. But can I ask you to kind of address your own personal journeys here and maybe any lessons that they might hold for thinking about the larger body of educators who are, many of whom are going to start experiencing these changes in their own lives?
Well, I first have to say I'm similar to Matt in that I'm a new teacher. This is just my 3rd year at the high school, and I think one of the biggest journeys for me is allowing my students to not only become comfortable, but to look at me as a student as well. And we were talking about during lunch that the energy levels when you're using digital technology tools in a situation in which I openly tell my students, hey, I have no idea what this is going to look like, that I'm learning right along with you, all of a sudden the entire experience becomes different. I have students jumping up and offering to find other things to attach to the project, or, oh, look what they've discovered, you can do this, that, and the other. And then all of a sudden, the project evolves, it changes, my curriculum changes, and I think for me, a big journey is just looking at, my curriculum and my projects are constantly evolving. And I really have to be okay with certainly trying to plan out and try things out myself, a week or 2 in advance. But quite honestly, so often I find that my projects in the middle of a class will change just because of a certain tool that's come up or sometimes a technical issue, but just being flexible with that. And I think that since my students have recognized this with a lot of my projects, I think that the positive energy's gone up, the excitement for what we're working on goes up, and then them actually being able to use those tools in across core subjects I've seen increasing. And I actually was invited to another sophomore's exhibition yesterday as their guest teacher, and this particular student shared that she had created a Google site in another class for a different subject on something she was learning about and used it as, she was proud of it. So that's just my experience.
So I just got an iPad last summer, and I said, this is overwhelming. All of this stuff is just amazing, but my brain can only fit so much. So I said, okay, video. Just understand video, because what you want to do is make the world a better place. So what you want to do is you want to connect with some people, and you want to send these video, you want to send the writing, you want to figure ways to communicate with people. And so let's just focus in on the video. And so my journey has been, it's just like I have the iPad with me, and I'm like, okay, I'm talking to my friends in Australia and Italy, and doing these very quick 5-second moments to share with them my day and what I'm eating or what I'm doing with the kids. And it's just become very natural now for me to be able to share without any hesitation, because the iPad has allowed me to quickly email a video, which wasn't the case last year when I tried to do video with Poland. So I'm realizing in my journey that if I can just focus on one thing and celebrate on that and say, okay, let's just keep building on that. It's going good.
In the past, I've always liked teaching. I really like the school I work with. Some of my colleagues are out there. I work with some really talented people. But it was sort of delivered to me. So you had professional development or workshops, and it was always put out in front of you, and you do different things. And then a couple of years ago, or a year and a half, Bonnie can tell me what it was, but we took this class, and it really pushed us hard to really start publishing our own work and to start self-engaging in things that are going on. And so I'm now a Twitter freak, which I call it the anti-smoking thing, because smoking you try and give up, and Twitter you have to try and try and try until you can actually make it work. And so Twitter is just this amazing tool that I use all the time now. I'm teaching an online course to adults all over the world about blogging. I'm having a book, writing a book with a person this summer, and my colleagues will attest I can write well enough to keep a job, but that's about it. All these amazing things are happening, and so it's really changed my view on what learning looks like for me obviously for the students. And again, technology plays a huge role in that. But it's really changed the way I think about being engaged. I no longer think about, well, it comes to you and you pick and choose. I'm like, no, you need to go out there and you need to get after it. And you need to challenge people's ideas, and you need to publish your work, and you need to become a person that's going to play with other people out there. And it radically changes kind of your whole world and what you get into. Yesterday I was talking to people at lunch about, I was reading about the Common Core test in Pearson. And so I spent an hour yesterday reading about Pearson and all these rather large multi-million-dollar contracts they have with all these different states. And I wouldn't have told you 2 days ago I was going to do that, but that's what I did because that's one of the groups I belong to was talking about. So it's really changed my view on what it looks like today.
For me, it's all about the connections and relationships that I'm able to make with other people. The technology has really kind of given me permission to kind of open up and be very transparent in my thinking and my practice, and that's really energizing for me. And I try to model that with my students as well. I think as educators, I'm trying not, we get very overwhelmed sometimes, like thinking about, oh my God, I have to learn about Twitter now, and I have to learn about this, and I have to learn about that. And so instead of just saying, no, 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 I'm trying to just be really open to that and just to see what things develop. I had, very similar to Al, I was not a writer in high school. I barely made it through high school. It wasn't until I got out of high school and out of college that I decided, oh my gosh, I think I really want to teach because I love the outdoors. So now that I'm in a classroom, I love writing. So I've also had some things that are published. I'm working on a book that I hope will be published. We'll see. But again, all of these things would not have been possible if I wouldn't have been given some tools, some opportunities where there are other people out there who are interested in what you're doing. And how is that working for you, and how is it making a difference for you and your students? I think the other thing I think a lot about is making sure that when I'm working with children and also myself, what is my goal? What is it that I want to know? For me, it always has to come back to that learning. What is it that I want to learn? What is it that I want to do for someone else? Even in kindergarten, every year we have this food drive because we're collecting food for people in our community. So I think about that. That's a problem that we have in our community. How are we going to make sure that everybody eats? Again, when we think about those authentic problems that are real world problems with our students, and then what are those tools or those things that are out there that can help us kind of reach our goal, are really, really empowering for not just me as an educator, but my students, because I'm modeling for them how tools and how we can use them to make a difference.
Being last is terrible because everybody had to give good answers. So, what they said. No, I think my journey as an educator, I was really lucky when I moved to Vermont. I had taught in Colorado for a couple of years and moved to Vermont. And I got to connect with some people who really showed me and brought me to the point where I am now. And so having and developing that PLN has allowed for me to improve as an educator so that I get to do what we heard everybody else talking about. When you find something you want to learn about, being able to learn about it and getting out there and doing it and being self-directed on that. But without that PLN, there's no way that I'd be having the success that I am right now with my students and being able to see their growth and see them being motivated. And all that comes from ideas that I've gotten from other people, and I just implement it into my classroom. So we were talking about how the PLN works, and I heard, not being a writer, and I can one-up that. I'm a writing teacher who, due to my lack of concern for my education when I was younger, failed 9th grade English, then I had to double up. So I failed 10th grade English, and I doubled up. And I failed 11th grade English, and doubled up. And finally I realized I should probably try, because I really could do it, but I just didn't care. And so now, being able to connect and realizing that's my relationship with my students, which helps me to feel like I'm having success with them. But being able to have the PLN that I have then allows me, as the person who has failed writing multiple times, to actually have the opportunity to also have looking at accomplished and working towards that. So really without the PLN, I wouldn't have grown, and therefore my kids couldn't have gotten to have me, the person I am now, as their teacher. So although I was lucky in that I fell into or got a job where I was lucky to meet the people that I did, I would definitely stress for any educator who's looking to progress to really focus on who you're connecting with and how you're connecting, so that Twitter is part of your normal, maybe not everyday existence, but it's a part of your existence, and making those relationships and really moving forward with people and being willing to share, but also willing to steal ideas from others, because almost everything that's powerful in my room right now I got from somebody else who might have tweaked it a little bit, but without that PLN, none of that stuff would have happened for my kids.